Fun. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Husbands Know Better. I'm Ben Husband. This is my brother Daniel Husband and my dad Daryl Husband. We're here to talk some NBA today, and I'm going to lead us off. So we'll dive right in. Big news this past week with the purchase of the Celtics, largest sale in sports history. New owner Bill Chisholm, record-breaking money, spent $6.1 billion purchasing the franchise. Dad, you got your Celtics jersey or your Celtics hoodie on. What do you think? What are reactions?
I'm tentatively excited. I wanted to get it done sooner than later, although the Grusbeck family has been awesome. They're really a hands-off type of ownership, and I'm hoping that Chisholm is going to be the same way. Um, the biggest question is going to be managing the payroll and the luxury tax. That's the hardest thing at the end of this year. There's going to either be some really hard choices with personnel, or he's got a wallet that's endless, or at least endlessly open because he's going to be shelling out a lot of money. They are looking at a payroll of $450, $450 million next year. That's with the luxury tax plus draft picks they would lose. And just going through, the players' numbers, Tatum's 54.1, Brown's 53.1, Drew is 32.4. Porzingis is in his final year at 30.7, which maybe at the trade deadline next year they send him off in an expiring contract trade. I don't know. Derek White's 28.1, and then Hauser's 10, Pritchard 7. Horford and Cornette are the main free agents that you would lose out of the rotation, but still, that's $223.9 million for those seven guys. I'm sorry.
So really quick, not to cut you off, that's what I was actually. I've been hearing a lot of people talking about how Sam Hauser is going to probably be the first guy to get axed because his $10 million contract is going to, like, with all the luxury tax deals, is going to look, if I remember right, is like going to be, after everything all said and done, it's going to be it's basically an $80 million contract, even though he signed for a 10 million. So he's going to probably be like one of the first ones to go.
Okay.
Which is why, yeah, I was listening to a couple of things on it. Basically that he was just going to be the first odd man out, but I am glad that you mentioned it, where with you talking about everybody's contract, because it was an interesting perspective. It's an interesting perspective because the Grossbecks were at some point going to have to make the tough decision to potentially at some point break up the team. And you spent all this time crafting this masterclass of a team from last year and going into this year, and you have this massive luxury tax that you're just pegged with. And do you want to be that guy? And then so he sells to a new owner who has to make that tough decision, which I thought was funny.
The buck.
Oh, absolutely. You don't blame him on it. And Whit Grossbeck wanted to keep on going, but his dad, who's in his 90s, is like wanting to ride off on the sunset, which is understood. Like, I mean, how much more can you do? But I thought it was interesting because I don't remember his last name, but his first name, but his last name is Pegluca. He was the one that everybody was calling for to be the one that take over. And then when he lost out and it went to Chisholm, he had this like 5-paragraph post saying, like, I would have been the one to shell out all the money and take care of all of this. And so it's kind of interesting to see how things go from here on out.
He's a minority owner
right
now. So, I mean, he seemed to have the favorability, and I'm not exactly sure. I think he was even willing to go to 6.1. So I'm not sure. And, with rich people like that, I hate to put it in that, but they are used to getting their own way and cannot understand not getting their own way. So I'm not really sure how that's going to roll. He may sell his share of the team, and that's fine. Um,
I mean, to be fair, after what he said in that stretched out in his statement, it would be really awkward for him to stick along ride along with Chisholm after, because he definitely made a divide from
yeah.
making that statement. Scorched
Interesting.
earth, maybe not, but it's like,
I got from the ringer that so it's going to be like a 3-year process. Grusbeck is still
yep,
going to be the CEO and the governor of the team right up through the 27-28 season. And as the value of the team increases year to year, they're looking at this sale possibly going to 7.3 billion when
that's
all is said and
insane.
done. Which I mean, the Washington Commanders in was it 2023? Was
Yep,
it?
just 2 years ago.
Sold, yeah, sold for 50 million less. So they were 6.05 billion. And I'm sure, especially with this season that they had, I mean, their value is going to be, better. So, it makes sense that, the Celtics will increase. And, the Celtics are heading towards at least the Eastern Conference Finals. It would be a shock to me if anyone else, breaks that up. But 7.3 billion,
You
I
know
don't.
what's funny though about that 3-year plan where Wits because it's so like have control of it. Like this is the only analogy that I could think of. Literally, imagine buying a car, and the dealer being like, "Okay, so you can keep the car in your garage, but you can't drive it." That's literally the deal that just happened right there. Like if I want this man to buy me a car someday, like, or to make a deal, like help me buy a car someday, because I feel like he could talk these car dealer these car dealers into just basically paying me to buy their car or get the car.
Not only is he not allowed to drive it, but he's going to drive the car for you
Yeah,
for that time.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, like,
You
I
just
wouldn't
in
mind a
the back
chauffeur.
seat.
That's right.
Let
Hop
me
in,
show
buddy.
you how to drive this car, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dad,
So
with the
what do you?
numbers.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
Oh,
sorry. I was just gonna say, with the numbers that you're throwing around, Dad. A lot of people are talking that this is kind of like this is basically speeding up the process for expansion, and that the potential of a Seattle and the Las Vegas team are a lot sooner on the horizon than expected, with because of the Celtics deal reaching this just insane 6.1 billion, potentially going to 7.3 billion.
Yeah,
That's
that's
insane.
incredible numbers, and the TV deal that they locked in with Amazon and ESPN, and I think NBC's got part of it. I'm not sure,
Yes.
but okay, you know, big money, and maybe that'll help with the um, lowering the um, the luxury tax a little bit because the payrolls will be a lot higher. That's my hope. I'm thinking Drew Holiday will be the next one to fall. That's just he
I'd agree
makes
with you.
more. I don't think Derek White's going to go. I hate to see Drew go, but just looking at the numbers, one of them's going to go, and I don't think it's going to be Porzingis. They may hold on to him to the end of the contract. I don't know. See if they can get a three-peat.
How
Because
many more years do you think you got on for Horford?
is that before he
so
breaks down?
looking, he's going to
No,
have.
seriously. Tread's not forever.
Yeah, he's 37. He's a free agent at the end of the year. I think they're going to hope for um, a hometown discount and get a league minimum, veterans minimum for him.
Mm.
That's what I'm thinking. If he wants to stick around for a three-peat, he's 37. His time in Philadelphia stunk. He could end up. I mean, he could pick where he wants to go, but how much money are you really going to get as a 37-year-old?
He still played some minutes in the playoffs this past year, so it's not to say that he's just going to be a locker room presence. He
And
still he still can do it on court.
he's playing, more games and more minutes than Porzingis. Right, I think so. But I think Brad Stevens is going to let him survey the market unless Al says, I want to stick around, give me the veteran minimum, and we'll just, I'll stick around for one more year.
I mean, the team loves him.
Oh, absolutely.
Drew Holiday has definitely been a massive vocal leader in the locker room, along with I would assume Derek White. He's a Popovich guy, so he's got to have a voice. But I feel like because Horford's been there for so long.
Oh yeah.
That even negating out the Philly OKC seasons, you can't put a price tag on some of that stuff.
Right. Rather be shooting for a three-peat than playing for a team that's, at best a play-in team.
You want to go play for the Bulls? Let's go play for the Bulls and maybe the play-in every single season.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just had this one random thought also. In regards, so Matt Ishbia bought the Phoenix Suns back a few years ago for $4 billion. Seized control of Phoenix Mercury and their arena, unlike how Chisholm only got the Celtics, didn't get TD Garden. Anyways, I was thinking about it, and so there is a $2.1 billion difference between that deal and the Celtics deal, and I basically just I figured it I know my math is off, and you guys can correct me on this one because you guys are quicker on running the numbers, but that's basically Chisholm paid $900 million for each Celtics championship. Am I correct on that one? No, I'm not correct on that one. Is it 90 million?
We have 18. So 18 into 6 billion was that 50?
No, I was saying there was a 2 billion
300.
difference between about a $2.1 billion difference between the Suns deal and the Celtics deal. So I was taking the 2.1 billion, and I'd say that each banner was worth X amount of $1 million. That's why HBO only got it for 4 billion, and the Celtics were 6.1.
So I'd say it's a little more than 100 million.
100, okay.
Banner.
That is why I knew my 900 billion was way off as soon as I said, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
No, that's okay.
But yeah, no, that was my thing. So that's why the Celtics were 2 billion more, because you had to pay for each championship banner.
Yep.
Not a cheap purchase, that's for sure. Let's move on to our next topic. So we had a particular coach this past week have some choice words for the officiating, JB Bickerstaff, after the Cleveland Cavaliers loss, criticized the refereeing of the game heavily. There were some apparent impacts to the game. Did it cost them the game? Maybe. But certainly throughout this season, there have been some issues with it. Daniel, what do you think on the league's response to JB Bickerstaff's comments?
I think this one's got a little bit more to say about it.
Well, just some of the expletives and
you know what everybody said is everybody was like, he was so sweaty. I've heard so many people comment on him being so sweaty. And hey, man, when you get passionate, you sometimes just break a sweat, man. Like that's a coach going for your team. Oh man, I didn't even think about it. So Bickerstaff coached the Cavs last year, so I like this. That literally, I was just thinking about like the league responding, but Bickerstaff coaching the Cavs last year, I'm sure he was, feeling a little bit more of that. Anyways,
prejudice to winning teams.
No, because that was his team last year. They turned on him.
Well, okay, but wasn't the game against OKC? It was against OKC, and
Oh my
they
gosh, you're so right. I am so wrong on this one. I am just gonna write
it's
myself out of this one.
Shai Gilgeous
You
more
said
free throws than any other player in the league this year.
I swear you
yeah.
said I thought you said Cavs, and then I completely derailed my brain. I'm not pointing the blame. Oh
That's
my
okay.
gosh.
Let me jump in
I've
and
been
get
up
you back on track.
since 4 in the morning.
So,
What am I doing here?
yeah, really. No, I don't mean it as what you're doing here, but you've been up since 4 in the morning.
No, what am I doing here? Please question me that.
um, but so I think it was four technicals, and two of them. No, I think it was five technicals.
Cade got
Two were on Kate
ejected.
Cunningham, he got ejected, and two on Bickerstaff, and he got canned.
Isaiah Stewart did not get ejected, which was impressive.
Yeah, good for him. You know,
I know,
maybe he's
right? He
starting to
said,
learn.
no, he's not.
And I know Bickerstaff got fined. I think it was 100,000. Not sure what it was,
It was.
but it was 100,000.
Yeah, and he may have saved Cade from a bigger fine by doing so.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm sure the team's paying it.
I think that's my issue is that, like, for starters, why these fines are just silly. Like 100,000. We literally were just talking about a team that it sold for 6.1 billion. So what's that worth to $100,000? Like, for us, that would be life crippling. But in a $6.1 billion assessment, in opposed to $100 million or $100,000 fine, like, what are we doing here? Are we just slapping people on the wrist and telling them to carry on with themselves?
Well, I mean, he's a coach, so he's probably making 5 million, 8 million, 10 million, somewhere around there.
The team's gonna cover it.
Right.
The team's gonna cover. Who cares?
Right. Well, it's not 6.1 billion, but he's the thing is that, and he's talking about getting respect for his Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
And although I hate that word, and I get where he's coming from, because that's why Shea has got so many, number one in free throws attempted, is because what did they nickname Shea? The free throw. No.
Oh yeah.
The free throw merchant. That's what he's called, the free throw merchant. I mean, I get the frustration. The thing is, and I cannot understand this, why ref differently regular season or the playoffs. It should be the same for everybody. I can't understand that mentality. Like, Shea's dribbling the ball to the basket, gets slapped on the hand. Oh, it's a love tap, but he gets two free throws. And Cade Cunningham, same move to the basket, gets hacked, and somehow, some way, the refs are looking at the cheerleaders, or something like that, or they're looking at Bickerstaff, waiting for him to say something. That was my only real take. Why can't it be the same year in or regular season to playoffs, teams to teams, player to player? I just don't understand it.
I think it's been a frustrating thing for a while, especially since James Harden a few years back when he won MVP. It was the same sort of thing. Every time he drove the lane, tried to shoot right into the guy in front of him, you see Shea going up, doing the same thing, trying to bump bodies with the guy next to him, and even if he's in position, and the refs give him a shooting foul.
Yeah. I think part of the issue though is that there is also that instability of when to make a call and when not to make a call. It was very apparent last year after the All-Star break that they had made some significant rule changes to the league that changed a lot of what the defender could and could not do against the person against the players on offense. And there was that massive shift, which made it a lot more enjoyable for viewers, for us. But it's seemed apparent over the past few years that there have been some rules that have not been I'd say being so helpful towards the defense. Yeah, I know, right? That have been hurting defenses, which help with making these games not be just a drag of a 60 to 70 point game, but also I feel like there's some instability on what calls are being throughout the years. you know,
It's frustrating.
yeah, to defend the refs, you have calls and you're having these gray areas for calls, and it's making it difficult for them to make a proper call. But then you bring in Secaucus and they help out with the challenges. So what are we doing with refs? Yeah, they're the
How much
boots on the
longer till
ground.
they're having the same discussion that the NFL is, and they're automating reffing? It might not be too far off before they can have some, virtual refs on the court
Mhm.
rather than having to take these long pauses where they're reviewing video of a certain play. They can just catch it on the fly, and if they got something wrong, then they revert it, and then you're back to the game.
And the refs have been taking, and the refs take a long time for these calls,
Yeah.
which leads to some to more instability, because if you can't figure it out in the first minute or two, like, is it like, are we looking for a hair to be out of a place?
Yep. Let's not change it in the NFL. Let's move on to our last topic. It's the last one of the night. Jimmy Butler and his impact on the Golden State Warriors since leaving the Miami Heat. Trade happened back on February 6th. Jimmy Butler, who hadn't played in several games for the Heat, moved over to Golden State, and his impact has been huge. So let's talk a little bit about what that's meant for the Warriors. Let's talk about light of Steph's injury, and then what's going to happen to the Heat moving forward. They lost their locker room guy. Dad, what do you think?
Um, well, I'm going to look at the Heat, and as a Boston Celtics fan, I'm so glad that we may not even see them in the playoffs. Um,
I was gonna say that. I was totally gonna say it. It'd be like, oh, geez, Dad, are you excited that they're basically just hopping on one toe right now?
that's about it. Although I've always said that I think Spoelstra could take um, a group of kindergartners to the playoffs. It looks like that may not be exactly the case because he still has Bam Adebayo on his team. But one thing as I was watching the Knicks Heat game this past week, the graphic came up that Spoelstra had never lost 8 in a row ever in his coaching career, and the only coaches who were in that category were Red Auerbach and Phil Jackson. And
Good company.
I found that amazing company. And then, of course, he goes ahead and loses to the Knicks and loses the next two. So they're on a 10-game losing streak. So now,
And they are currently playing right as we speak, actually, against the Hornets. Because I too was looking this one up.
yeah. Here's an interesting thing to throw in. The Heat are playing Golden State this week in
Yes,
Miami
they
on
are.
Tuesday. I thought that would be. I feel sorry. I can't believe I'm saying this, that I feel sorry for the Miami Heat, and I kind of almost want them to beat Golden State. The last thing I want to do is to see them in the playoffs, because if nothing else, we'll be out coached. Even though we're so stacked personnel wise on them, but
I still think you're being too hard on Missoula, man. I've been saying it to you for a while. I think you're being too hard on Missoula. I know he's no Spoelstra, but I don't think he helped that team win a championship last year. You can't take that away from him.
right. And I understand it takes a lot to blend all stars, such as Golden State when Mark Jackson was coaching Steph, Clay, and Draymond. He gets fired. They bring in Steve Kerr, and he flips it all around, and then they win. They've won 4 championships now, but he turned it right around. And so coaching does matter. It's hard to manage, all stars. Although I think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are pretty
They're
low
a lot
ego
easier than
guys.
some of the other ones.
Yeah, it would be a lot harder to do LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh. I think that you've got two real alphas and a very thoughtful yet perennial all star, and who I'm sure wanted more touches than he got while he was in Miami.
And going with that, this will be a good testament for Kerr's coaching ability in regards to being able to manage Draymond Green and Butler's egos. And because they are, speaking of alphas, they are some of the most alpha players in the league.
Is it egos or is it their temperament?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, better him
Well,
than
with any
me.
luck, Draymond will get suspended because he punches another player, and Jimmy will refuse to play, and then they'll be down both of
What if Draymond punches Jimmy?
them.
No,
Dream come true.
there was some conversation about whether how long it was going to be until they just get into a fist fight on the court, which would be incredible. Like, who would not pay to see that?
Must see TV. I would pay good money for it.
Oh my gosh, I could we know what we'd be talking about that day.
Oh,
I so I just looked up the score, and it seems, unless a nuclear collapse happens, it looks like the Heat are going to take down the Hornets, so they're going to snap this 10-game losing streak. I have always thought that Butler was making that team. It's apparent he makes any team he goes to better. You can say what you will about his attitude. You can say he's just money hungry.
I was looking at,
but he's got the results.
I'm not sure if he really got results in Minnesota, but everywhere else,
they didn't make the playoffs the next year.
Oh, they didn't? Okay.
No, they didn't make the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs.
It was just such a short time. He was there for a year and a half. You know,
they didn't make the playoffs, and they barely made the playoffs too because he was injured for so long.
Here's an impact stat for you. So when Jimmy's on the court for the Golden State Warriors, the percentage of scoring goes up. So the assists go up from 70% of made baskets to 75% of made baskets. And the steals go up from 9% of possessions to 11%. So I thought that was when Jimmy's on the court. I thought a lot of the other stats were about the same. And it's those two things. They needed more ball movement because with Steph, they were so stagnant because they were relying on him. Now with Jimmy, all the passing is more fluid. Everyone's getting more touches. So everyone's more involved. And then steals, well, let's see. He's an excellent defender. Not a surprise that they go up 20% from 9 to 11.
He's one of the ultimate glue guys because he even mentioned that he doesn't. What was it this past week? He finished a game out with 4 points, and in the press he was like, I don't have to be like I can impact the game in more ways than just scoring. Yep. And he's totally cool with it, being like, oh hey, you don't need me to score and you just want me to cause havoc on defense. No problem, I got that. I mean, he's got Curry going. He's got Curry on his. They've got Curry, so he doesn't need to come out and score 30 points every single night.
Yeah.
I mean, granted,
he's again, totally loaded.
What's that, Ben?
That once again, the Golden State Warriors are totally loaded.
They have their weaknesses. They just had a big loss the other night to Atlanta. And I'm pretty sure you guys both saw the Lakers, who had their found fortune with Luka, get completely obliterated by the Chicago Bulls last night.
Yeah, isn't it great?
So the good fortune teams, sometimes come up short. They still have to adjust. They still have to adjust.
Yep. All right, we got to wrap this up. We're out of time. This has been Husbands Know Better. We'll catch you next time on the podcast.